I just had a brief question to Jyoti, the last speaker. You mentioned that you're all on the IPCC, and the IPCC report actually addresses gender in the adaptation somewhat, but it doesn't really address gender that much in the energy. And so what is your experience in working with the IPCC in terms of including more gender emphasis in the energy and the other sectors? And also about women and sort of women's involvement in the IPCC as researchers.
Can we take other questions also to at least 3 so that, please.
Good afternoon. This is not on, is it? Yeah, can you hear me? Good. Yes. Good afternoon. Carmen Niethammer with the International Finance Corporation, part of the World Bank Group. I actually have a question for the Minister. Thank you very much for your delightful presentation, and thank you for your support on gender and energy in general. My question to you was, when you meet with your fellow ministers of energy, how often does gender come up? Is this something that everybody discusses? Are you obviously the leader, or how does gender get discussed in your portfolio with other ministers?
Can we have one more question, and then we can answer.
My question is for Jyoti as well. And when we look at the energy sector development in our countries, we all know that we talk about energy, sustainable energy for all by 2012, right? Now, when we look at the energy budgets and all that, we can see that cooking fuel, which is the biggest service provider, has been excluded from the energy mass in many countries, including Sri Lanka, right? So I believe, because Sri Lanka is trying to provide electricity for all by 2012, and we will be succeeded simply because we have already covered 95% of the households. Now, where's this cooking fuel? We talk about cleaner fuel for cooking. Where is it? Have we been able to capture this gap or the empty space in our energy budget? How are we going to incorporate this into the energy domain or the energy systems, or integrate this aspect into the minds of the energy sector professionals? Thank you very much.
So, Honorable Minister, you take the first answer.
Thank you. As a minister now, who before was involved in gender and energy, what we do is in our programs to take account gender. And we have some programs like solar pumping, solar cooking, but also solar to dry, such as solar dry. Because in Senegal, women are very, very involved in agriculture. And after the hours, sometimes we have many products, and we cannot, small time sell it. So what we want is to have solar dryer for conservation of this product. But what also I do is, with my colleague in charge of gender, because we have in Senegal a ministry for gender, and this minister is led by a woman. So what we do is to discuss with her and see how we can link our program, gender and energy, but also gender and other sectors. So in my position, we try to influence the Senegal policy in any sector. And last, I think 2 or 4 weeks before, we have had to adopt the national document for the development of Senegal, like PRSP. And in that document, we were involved to have chapters in gender and energy. And we did our best that gender and energy be clear in this document. So now with my position, I'll try to influence my colleagues, but also our program to take account gender in our politics. Thank you.
Coming to IPCC, IPCC, there are some women, I have not counted, but maybe 10 to 20%. And they are there in their capacity as scientists, so there is no, at that point, no women's issue there. But naturally, we all know there are plenty of women's issues. But as you know, IPCC has come into severe criticism for not adhering to a good reference scientific material. And so it is it becomes our responsibility now to produce lot of good reference and solid scientific evidences that gender is important. So it is kind of, you have to prove it. So now that we have several papers in journals, this paper of ours with ENERGIA funding, it will be certainly there, and in our chapter, it will be access to fuel, access to modern housing, both, all this will be there. And so increasingly there is that problem. And in the, you know that Conference of Parties, they have many events, and some of them are also gender and climate change. There also I say that IPCC is a place where it all starts. When IPCC says gender is something you have to look into, that's when they start doing the things. So it is very important that you plant something there. And that has to be done on very good scientific evidence. Second question was
Clean cooking energy.
Yeah, I mean, you also saw in India's case that somehow electricity access is far more than the LPG access or clean fuel access. Clean fuel was, if you remember, about 20%, and electricity was 65%. And I think that it is something to do with the fact that this is managed by men and engineers, and they managed to do this whole implementation, whereas there are no similar kind of managers for cooking fuels. So it is, there also there is some gender bias in the organizational structure itself and how things are managed, but in fact electricity, it costs far more investment and money, effort to electrify than to give clean cooking fuel. So I tell them why you don't do this, which is simpler and will benefit so many people. It has so many externalities of health and many other environment and GHG emissions also. But somehow it's the electricity which makes progress, not the clean cooking fuels.
I just wanted to add this, that in 2 states of India, the LPG was distributed free in Andhra Pradesh, and recently in Chennai, this is Tamil Nadu, in the states in South India. In Andhra Pradesh, people could not afford, so that it was, they used it once, and then the cylinders were, LPG were sold to the others. So we have to see the results in Tamil Nadu. I think the things are different in Tamil Nadu, that's what they are kind of projecting, and it can come up, this thing. But one thing in clean energy for cooking, also a lot of agencies and the government and the Shell Foundation and others, the private sector are involved in promoting improved cook stoves. It's like wildfire it is going. Now it is needed, there is no doubt, but problem is that women's role is seen only as cooks in this, that you provide this kind of energy and that's that's the end of it. Then you have solved their problem. So that also needs to be seen, that probably that how limiting it becomes in terms of the perspective. Thank you. Yes, please.
My question is to Jyoti ji. I was very much impressed with the 1 kilometer policy postulate that you came up, and it was very much well acclaimed. My question is, even in India you have the highlands and the lowlands, and 1 kilometer, how possible is it? What were the criteria that went into coming up with this postulate? And is it just a general thing? How is it picking up in the lowlands where the infrastructure is well in place? And in comparison to the highlands where I understand that the infrastructure is not well placed?
I think we need to show a lot of business models of 1 kilometer, and that's why we had these two things. One was done by Swati and one was done by other people in Rajasthan. We need to come up with more suggestions about various different models in different situations, different climatological and different resource-oriented things. But as usual, and Honorable Minister is here, everything becomes multi-ministerial, and should this be implemented by Women and Child Welfare Ministry? Should this be implemented by electricity? No, that cannot be. It cannot be oil and gas, it cannot be coal. So who does this? So luckily now we have some Green India Mission, though there also that Green India Mission is with environment and forest. So they are not going to look into this as a possible, their idea of is preservation of forests and rather than using them. But now the attitudes are changing about how to actually, that the key to survival of forests is that you use them and use them wisely. So I think these are, as it is true of all women's things. I mean, women's health statistics is doesn't include all this indoor air pollution. That labor statistics doesn't include their work. The energy they use is not included in energy statistics. Housing they do, and they keep doing that, is not there in housing statistics. So it is a phenomena that is persistent in all fields.
Please. We have 4 more minutes.
My question is for Jyoti. You, in your slide, you mentioned the targets, the energy targets that India plans to achieve, 50% reduction in all electrified buildings, and so on. I noticed that you didn't mention the year when you plan on achieving these targets.
Can you repeat your question, please?
In one of the slides, you mentioned your targets, the energy targets that India plans to achieve. But in this slide, you didn't mention the year that this target would be achieved.
Yeah, for which slide was it?
Which slide you are referring to? Where
Your target, energy target, you said 50% reduction.
Oh, yes.
And I'm not
no. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm not the
50%. I mean, this was the suggestion that came out of that meeting, but naturally that has to be followed up by at local levels, and usually in India these things are fixed by different states according to their abilities. And even this 100% electrification, some states have done, some states are still working, and so on. So it would depend. Once you give that, this was kind of seen as like an MDG type of a thing, where how can you make some definitive target. So it was in that spirit, but the year would have to be decided by the state.
Okay, but we said that India has the political will and resources and infrastructure to achieve some of these targets. You said they have that.
Yeah, I mean, we are now doing for the Rural Electrification Corporation evaluation of the rural electrification, and I think some schools are doing well. but then again there they give electricity, and then all the other the responsibilities of that the education ministry. So all these things have a boundary of the things which are not already observed. They come and give plant coal and go away. Then nobody knows that it takes a long time for them to come, take the pole to the and put the meter and put the bulbs everywhere and wire the whole school. So these are the issues.